everybody, welcome back to The Engaging Educator. I'm Courtney and I'm going to do a video today that's a little bit different than my usual teacher tips and what's going on with me. As we know, we've been through this pandemic, we are wrapping up the school year, and we've had to find new interests and hobbies. One of the things that I've always loved is reading. I would consider myself a reading enthusiast, and I have not had time to read at all prior to the pandemic. So at the beginning of the year, I actually set a goal for myself to read 38 books, which I know is not a huge goal, as some people read 52 books in a year. But for me, I have not read a ton of books in 1 year, so I set myself with a goal that I thought was attainable. About 3 years ago, I think I've mentioned this, I'm almost 4 now, I started the Harry Potter series. And since reading the Harry Potter series, I was really at a loss as to what to read next. I felt like the series was so good, I was so wrapped in it, like there was no way that I could find something better. So that deterred my reading for a bit, and I focused mainly on just educator books, things that were going to help me as dean of students with discipline and different types of learners. And then obviously each year new books come out that help in the classroom as well. So that was where my main focus was. And don't mind if you hear some mowing in the backyard. It is landscape day. So, oh, and the kids. So you'll probably hear them as well playing in the background. But that's life, right? We're all at home. So I had, at the beginning of the year, again, I set my goal for about 38 books. And at that time, I got back in touch with a small book club that I used to be a part of. It's a few teachers, a medical professional, and I actually don't know what the other person does because I only know one person in the group, and then she kind of put me on into the fold, and there's just 4 of us. But so we started the book club up again in January. We tried to make it less stressed because we're all very busy. And so we focused on books of interest, and we decided we would do 2 months per book so that people had time to finish it and it didn't feel like high pressure and like we were trying to complete an assignment, right? That takes all the fun out of it. So the first book that I read at the beginning of the year, and I'll put a screenshot here of it, or here, whichever side, was The Mother-in-Law. The Mother-in-Law was a really good book. It's a mystery book. It's a whodunit, and basically the premise is the matriarch of a family passes in a very suspicious way, and so we spend the entire book trying to figure out who done it. We meet the daughter-in-law, the son, the daughter, the son-in-law. They all seem like they could have done it, and so it was a really great book and a very fast read. The next book I read, and these might not be in order because I have been doing some books online and some actual books. I do prefer a book that I can actually hold, but in a pinch I'll do an online book. So the next book I read was The Dirty Book Club. This was actually my choice for our book club, and it was okay. I don't know if you've ever been in a book club before, but when you're in the book club, there's like a lot of stress to find the best book. And so I found this. I thought it was going to be cheeky and cute, and it was just basically about a sisterhood of readers that read books that were aligned with their daily struggles that they might not really talk about. And they the first set of ladies were set in the 60s, and then the second set got kind of passed down to modern times. So we kind of flash back and forth between both time periods, and they experience a closeness and a bond with the books that they read. It took me a while to get through this, and it seemed to stall a little bit, so not my favorite, but I did read it. I never read Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, but in my mind it's like that sisterhood type book where you are feeling a connection between the women based on what they read and their life experiences. And I did find some parts that I could connect to, but it was one of those books I was trying to just wrap up. Okay, then I don't know if you guys are familiar, but on YouTube. There's a whole booktube universe. And one of the people that I love is Reagan on Peruse Project. And so I generally watch her vlogs a lot and pick up ideas of what to read next. So this was not a book club book pick. This was something that she recommended, and it was totally out of my comfort zone. It's called Bringing Down the Duke, and it is actually a historical romance novel. So it's like a period romance, which I loved, and I didn't know that I loved and needed it in my life. So this period historical romance is, I guess there's a whole genre out there of basically these social class differences. So this woman comes from a poor family or a church family, which is less than obviously royalty, and they have a chance encounter with a duke or somebody of power, and first they resist, then they love each other, then they get married. It's like a whole genre of books like this, and although they can be a bit predictable, they kind of suck you in. So I really liked this, Bringing Down the Duke. It's by Evie Dunmore, and she had a really great way of captivating me in the style that she wrote, and it was 356 pages, but it felt like a quick read. There is a lot of like will they, won't they, which I personally don't like. A little bit's okay, but when we get to like the 5th encounter and it's like, no, it's just kind of a letdown. So you're like, come on, just get to the meat of it. This book does have some scenes in it that are not kid friendly. Not that I came to be reading this, but it does get a little steamy is the best way to put it. But very captivating. So then after this book, Bringing Down the Duke, I went to my e-reader. I just have the Kindle Fire HD 10. This is the newest one, and I don't always read on the Kindle. Again, I like a paper book, but for this I did. So after Bringing Down the Duke, I read Tessa Dare's The Duchess Deal. Ooh, see if you can get that. Yep. And this had the same concept. It was a will they, won't they, guy and girl. Girl's kind of a lower class. I shouldn't say lower class. Girl is less fortunate money-wise and would be in a different social class than the Duke, and they meet up, they fall in love, they can't, they shouldn't, they won't, and then they do, and they get married at the end. I thought this one was good, but not as good as Evie Dunmore's. I feel like her writing was more engaging for me than Tessa Dare's, and her style of writing was better, but I still liked the Tessa Dare. And again, this was a recommendation from Reagan because she's like my booktube role model here. Okay, so then, don't laugh, I went into a dark tunnel of Kindle Unlimited. So Kindle Unlimited has a ton of books that are free to you, and I really enjoy a good YA book, and so I went back to my history and started reading some Sweet Valley High. Not gonna lie, I did. So I read Sweet Valley High Promises and Sweet Valley High Deception. These books are literally like half a day read, right? You're gonna get those knocked out really quick, like 100 pages. They're really quick, they're really snarky, they're really fun, and they kind of pull you. It's like a palate cleanser, right? So you go into some books, you get really deep and invested in the characters, and then you read a nice little palate cleanser and move on. So I've read 2 of those over this pandemic time as well, because they're cute, they're fun, they're young, they're like no stress, but I just like them. So then I decided, as I was waiting for the next book club choice, that I would go back and reread more Harry Potter. So I have been rereading the series. I got stuck on Goblet of Fire because it's not my favorite book, and I just couldn't get the mojo going for it because I don't like the book as much. It wasn't my favorite book, wasn't my favorite movie of the series, and so I didn't want to stall out. But I did move. I skipped book 5 because Order of the Phoenix was something that I was familiar with, and I just, to be honest, couldn't sit through the Umbridge torture. If you haven't read the books and you've only seen the movies, the books are so much more intense with the way Professor Umbridge treats Harry, so I couldn't get invested there emotionally. So I went and reread Harry Potter. Whoa, get it together, Hill. So I went back and reread Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and I reread it because toward the end of the series, my first time reading, I was really anxious to see what was going to happen. Each book, I was like going so fast and just like devouring it that I'm sure that I missed pieces, and I totally did. So I was excited to go back and reread. I was rereading the whole series anyway, because it's so well written and it's so good, but I'm glad that I jumped into book 6 so that I could get some details that I missed the first time, and I loved it. It took me probably about 2.5 weeks to read this one again. Obviously with work and kids and life, I can't just sit and read all day, but I'm glad that I reread it. All right, then after that, our book club picked American Dirt, which I will put a screenshot here. American Dirt was really intense for me. The first 2 chapters just have a lot of violence in them, and it wasn't my cup of tea. Obviously, the book club is not a high pressure book club, and everybody understood, and that's when I kind of got into reading the Harry Potter, finishing that, and my Sweet Valley High, The Land of Joy. So the next book club book we picked is one that people know. It is Where the Crawdads Sing, and oh my goodness, this is the most recent book that I finished, and it is so good. So everybody's seen this. I feel like it's been everywhere, but I kind of like to go against the grain, so I wasn't really excited to read this. I was like, okay, well, you know, I'll try it. And it started off a little slow. One of my friends online told me, you know, get past the first third of the book and then you're gonna fly through it. And she was absolutely right. The first is a lot of setup and a lot of background, and then as you get into it, you're like sucked in. So this book is 368 pages, and it is really, really good. This book just follows a woman who is having to basically raise herself on a marshy area. I kind of want to say island, but it's not like an island. It's just a marsh area. The townspeople are judgmental of her. They think that she is less than them, and she ends up being really victorious in her life. She has a couple of love interests. She becomes an amazing author, and things happen. So I don't want to spoil it. I feel like saying she was an author is already a spoiler, so I'm sorry. But it is a really great book. It's got some suspense in it. It's got some romance in it. And it is a good, quick read after you get past the first few pages. Probably about the first 60 pages, then it starts getting really good. I had about 60 so pages or something that I was trying to finish, and I finished it in the night because, oh my gosh, I just hit myself. Okay, I had about 60 to 80 pages that I needed to finish toward the end. I just hunkered down and like read them straight through with a flashlight in the dark because I was ready to figure out what happened in the story. So I highly recommend this book. The last book that I'll talk about right now is the book that I'm currently reading, which is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I am rereading this one. Obviously just finishing book 6. I wanted to keep the train moving with book 7 and not wait too long between the reread. Again, I've read these already. This is just rereading for detail and things that I may have missed. I really enjoy the books, so that's where I am right now. Let's see, I'm just gonna check my e-reader to see if there's anything else, because there is one other thing that I'm also reading another Tessa Dare, Romancing the Duke. And this is, she has several series, so this is a different series. I'll show you the cover. She has several series, and so this is a different one, and it follows a different main character. But I get these on the e-reader because they're mass media books and nobody has time for that. I also read Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan, And I really did like Percy Jackson because, again, YA, kind of fantasy-ish, and I was tricked into believing that this book also had Percy Jackson in it throughout. Although he is in it at the beginning, it is not a Percy Jackson book. It follows a different lead character, and but it was still pretty good. If you know the Percy Jackson series, you know the formula. They're back at the camp. There is adventure. It's a little bit predictable, but it was cute. I read this toward the beginning of March as just something fun to read. What else? I think that's everything. So I really enjoyed this time being able to catch up on my reading. This is something that I really love, and I've been really deep into the booktube world to find out recommendations. I hope these books and the ideas for these books has helped you pick your next style too. Thanks so much for watching. Please follow me as we go through the summer. You might see more book reviews, more book recommendations, as well as some planning for next year. We are all up in the air about what will be happening next year as far as classroom and what that will look like. So stay tuned for more great content. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.